who would make up that list? Is that something that's already out there and then we choose from, or is that something that we within our communities decide? How is that?
So, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously each community has their own specific projects that they prioritize, or at least group of projects or type of projects. So those would all be included in the plan, and it can be listed by jurisdiction. Oftentimes they do that. Warren County or City of Indianola has these priorities. So it's listed in the plan so that when you apply for funding, you can point to, hey, look, we already looked at this. We already have this in place. These are our priorities. So it can draw from whatever you've decided, or you can decide new priorities. It's just whatever jurisdictions decide what they want to prioritize.
Okay, all right.
On the next slide, you can see that we pulled out examples of funding just that have already gone to projects here in Iowa. We looked through the last 10 years of annual reports the EDA puts out, and you can just see just the different types of projects that have been funded. One was $1.7 million for the city of Cedar Rapids. That was for some flood resiliency for a water main to their Quaker Oats factory. Next two projects are funding for community colleges for some job training, skills training, that sort of thing. $600,000 went to Sioux City back in 2014 for their Gateway Airport project, and then $1 million went to the City of Dyersville for their Field of Dreams project back in 2013. So on the next slide, I'm deciding what it would take to form an EDD. There are a few things. One is that every county has to be part of the presidentially declared disaster declaration, which we are due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The second thing is that the agency requesting funding has to have adequate private representation on the board, and I'll explain that here in a second, but that's another requirement that has kind of stopped us here in Central Iowa from moving forward previously, is having that on your board. And then having support of the counties within the EDD area, that's why I'm here talking to you today, is in order to move forward, we have to have support from each county, that is going to make up the EDD area. Where we don't need a monetary commitment, is just a literal resolution saying we support the creation of this. That it essentially allows each county to be in the area, and by doing so, it allows the individual cities to join the EDD area as well. Without county support, cities don't have the option to join later.
Okay.
And then, lastly, local concurrence with the state. Not really too worried about that. And then local match for the funding. So that's it in a nutshell. The later steps we could talk about that local match portion. A new entity will have to be formed to kind of conform to the EDA requirements that are there, do the board and some other stuff. But that's a secondary request, and that's a choice everyone gets to make. But at this first step, the support by the counties is really important because it allows that choice later on. And then lastly, creating that sets, that's something that the MPO is going to undertake in-house, make sure we can get that completed as quickly as we can in order to move forward. So to compare it to something you might be familiar with, think of the long-range transportation plan that SERPA does or the MPO does, just this is focused on economic development rather than transportation.
So you say that we have to have adequate private representation. Okay, what is that?
So previously, they used to list a percentage, 30-40% had to be private. EDA, about 5 years ago, changed the requirements to adequate representation. They have no specific requirement, it's just you have to have representation on the board, whatever that looks like. That's a local decision on what that split looks like. If we wanted more private, we could. If we wanted less, we could as well. So.
Okay, so like one member, is that what you're saying, or? I mean,
EDA doesn't. No, I smile because EDA has not provided that guidance.
They haven't provided.
No, they say adequate representation, whatever that looks like. I imagine that will be a few more than one, but definitely not majority. So somewhere between that, whatever everyone feels comfortable with.
And since we're 7 counties, would it be 7 members on the board? Would it be 14?
That is a very good question. I don't think we've gotten that far. I think we need to meet with all the counties and entities involved and make sure that everyone feels what they would like to see on the board. I think we have to figure that out later on, but I imagine there will be some representation from each county on the board. It's just we have to formalize that. But we will reach out and discuss this with everybody here soon.
Okay. And another question about, now you said that all the counties have to be in agreement with this in order to form it. If one doesn't want to, could 6 of them do it? I mean,
we don't know. We asked that question to EDA. I think the response was, well, you're the last ones, and this is an area, the only requirement for that is just they support the creation. They don't have to participate on the back end if they don't want to. So when we say we need we just need the support of the 7 counties. We don't need all 7 counties participating at once necessarily.
Okay. My concern would be being part with Polk County. I mean, their population, I don't know how many grants or what would be available. Would we be joining this and then they get the bulk of everything? So I don't know, those are just some concerns I have about that.
Yeah, and you are definitely not alone. We've met with some other counties. Those are all very much sentiments that have been expressed. And I think what you'll find in other areas that do this, those really large areas, Des Moines, Urbandale, Santa Cruz, everybody, you know, they pretty much have staff there already, you know, doing that sort of stuff. So typically the requests for this sort of support would come from the Warren counties, the Indianolas, the Newtons, you know, the smaller jurisdictions where you don't. The support provided to larger jurisdictions would look different and is usually less intensive. So I know that's not a great answer. I can just tell you if you look at other areas around the state that have this, the Omaha, Waterloo, Iowa City, Dubuque, all of those are part of something like this, and they seem to see the benefit and it make it work. Had made it work for the last 30, 40 years. So we can get there. It's just I don't know exactly how to give that answer though.
Okay.
Other than using examples. So.
Thank you.
I think the last page, real quick, is just next steps. So giving you an idea of just what the process is and what we've been going through is we've been meeting with stakeholders. We did that in Warren County here last month, I think, with a lot of the jurisdictions, Supervisor Dickock, and other people to just go over this information. The next step is meeting with the Board of Supervisors, which is what we're doing here today. All the meetings we've had have gone favorably, and we're setting up meetings with the Board of Supervisors later on. We did meet with Polk County first, and although they didn't vote, they indicated their support for this. So we felt comfortable moving forward. So next, after that, after getting support to form the EDD, do all the steps I mentioned before, and then get the state of Iowa, specifically the governors, on board with this and support the designation. So that's it here today. I think we have on the agenda, if you would like to vote on a support resolution, that's all we're asking for is just a resolution supporting the creation of this. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay.
Is there any discussion or questions for Andrew?
You talked a lot about the CARES Act, and our budget director let me know that if a population was less than 500,000, that they would not get direct payments for CARES Act. Is that kind of like what this is creating, or what
He said it was designated directly for EDDs, that it was a specific category. That money he's talking about was a specific category for economic development districts.
Through EDA.
Okay.
It was separate from just the local government money.
Yes, it was completely separate, something through EDA out, yeah.
Okay, so going back to the CARES Act, if we had this formed, would we have gotten those direct payments, which is at 470?
Yep, that would have went to the organization, and the organization would decide how to.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct. Our CARES Act funding wouldn't be affected in either direction from that, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yep. And my take is I met with the MBO, was it a Zoom meeting in December, I think? And there's not a lot of downside to get it started unless one or two of the counties decide for whatever reason that we just don't want to do it. Regarding the actual allotments, I think the handwriting's probably on the wall that additional rounds of funding are probably coming next year. And so there's not a lot of financial downside if our county or our EDD receives some money. There is a local match option, but if we're not applying for something or we don't get something, there's no real downside to it. It doesn't affect other funding.
What is
But it
the
doesn't.
15 cents per?
That's a number we use just because we assume some people not automatically opt in, and we don't know who, but you can't count on everyone opting in. But 15 cents per person is generally what we've been saying is a safe.
Yeah. My take is we can sort of address that second aspect, whether or not we think it makes sense. But I'm going to be supportive for it, we very well might decide not to play. But if we sort of wreck it for everyone else, then that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That's why I'm school.
I agree.
Yeah, and we met with City of Indianola last night at their council meeting, and they indicated their support for this to move forward, so.
But yes, I do share Supervisor McIntyre's reservations that you're going to find in every rural county that surrounds Polk, and that is we're probably disinterested in putting money into a pot and receiving nothing back for it, and so that conversation is probably best held at a later date. But I would agree with her. Also not interested in that.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to, let's see, how can I word this?
Supportive resolution.
Yep, support of moving forward with the Economic Development District, as outlined, by the Des Moines Area MPO.
Second.
Any further discussion? Tracy?
McIntyre,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 3, we have an update from Norwalk City Manager Luke Nelson.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, for the support of that economic development district, I think that's going to be a good thing for the county and our cities here, and I know that our council members certainly share such support on the thing. Well, 2 of you saw me just a few weeks ago, kind of a roundup of what happened in 2020. I'll welcome Supervisor Heater to the table. I wish I was in person to meet you, but I thought I would come back after you were on board and give you a little heads up on what's happening as we move into 2021. So a little bit about Norwalk. In general, 2020 was a rough year. From a city growth or city management perspective, it's actually been a pretty good year for Norwalk. Despite any of the COVID, the pandemic, of course, those were certainly negative impacts on all of those communities. But we were kind of surprised with some of the trickle-down impacts of the pandemic. Overall, Norwalk grew by about 10% in valuation over the past year. We issued over 220 new housing permits. Commercial was slow, but there are some projects in the pipeline. Norwalk's commercial growth remains strong, with the Sleep-In Hotel being the only major project that was indefinitely delayed. The Hughes Century Crossing building is almost at capacity. They have, I believe, 5 bays in that strip center. They house the Subway's new location, Athletico, Edward Jones, and they recently opened the Mahalo's Coffee and Donuts. And if you haven't had a chance to try that, they are incredible. Gourmet donuts. 1 bay is yet to be filled, but they're in negotiations currently. We're currently working with 2 chain family restaurants, both planning to build new facilities as opposed to reuse an existing. The Cobblestone Hotel is moving along the site planning. Cobblestone Hotel is looking at the North Shore area, so this would be just south Highway 5, just west of Highway 28. They're moving along their site planning, which includes the hotel, a steakhouse, and an outlot for another possible commercial business. We hope to have a development agreement penned within the next few months. If all goes well, break ground in 2021. The sports campus and what's being called Norwalk Central is progressing nicely. This is kind of a town center concept that, believe it or not, is actually towards the center of Norwalk in an undeveloped area. Things are coming into focus, and this area will be a game changer for our community. It will include recreation, sports, entertaining, lots of things to do and eat. We are working on the design of the area and negotiating with a sports complex developer. Economic development has many existing and new incentives programs for everyone to keep in mind for new businesses. There is some commercial improvement grant. This is building owners can get up to So we're trying to advantage those folks first and then kind of roll back those incentives on who follows up. And then of course we have high quality jobs grant for employers that are bringing a higher wage requirement to the community. Should see several new commercial facilities begin construction over the next 24 months, and of course you will be made aware of those announcements accordingly. Some of our visual improvement projects over the next couple of years include a border fence along Highway 28. When you enter Norwalk from the north along Highway 28, there's kind of a mixed match of wood fencing along that area, and we're talking about doing something that's a little bit more consistent and a nice entrance to the community, along with the new entrance and monument sign. We're also looking at some downtown improvements of our small downtown area, expanding that along with some additional landscaping. For recreation, we are proposing an enclosed rental shelter to be constructed at our new Elizabeth Holland Park. We're going to be adding pickleball courts to Windflower Park and a new maintenance facility at the Mackinac Sports Complex, and further extensions of the city trail system while also filling some of our trail and sidewalk gaps in the community. A little bit more nuts and bolts. We're working on a new 5-year budget to help conceptualize some of our long-range financial planning. I will tell you that there is a component within that 5-year budget that contemplates levy reductions each year for the next 5 years. Of course, this would come as a part of our community having adequate growth. There's a ton more to talk about: streets, water, sewer. I always get made fun of how much time I spend talking about sewers, because I think that's a critical part of determining growth. But anyway, I'll stop there in respect of your time. I really appreciate you folks having me, and I'll entertain any questions.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for your time, and I look forward to meeting you too at some point in the future. So it sounds like you have a lot going on, and keep up the energy and enthusiasm even for sewers. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Have a great one. Okay. Number 4 on our agenda is consider memorandum of understanding with Teamsters 238 regarding modification to Article 18, parental wages with possible action.
The new sheriff Kirko requested to draft this memorandum of understanding. The Teamsters agreement is with the Board of Supervisors and the employees. Sheriff Kirko has a request of the board. The union has seen this. They have not approved it, but they have not indicated any problems with the memorandum. So with that, Sheriff Kirko.
Thank you. I would ask that the board consider approving the memorandum of understanding. What that would allow us to do as the sheriff's office is give the sheriff a little more discretion on bringing in a previously certified or maybe a more qualified than entry level employee in at a little bit higher rate within reason. It would help us to hopefully open up our recruiting pool to employees that are looking to maybe relocate back to Warren County or something that already have the qualifications that's required for our positions.
Excellent.
Are there any questions of the board for our new sheriff?
I make a motion to approve the request from the sheriff. It's the memorandum of understanding with Teamsters 238 regarding modification to Article 18 wages as outlined.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Tracy?
McIntyre.
Aye.
Heater.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Joe.
Alright, number 5, consider request from the auditor's office for hiring part-time employee with possible action.
I have, my claims deputy has discussed retirement, which is gonna be probably next year. But what I would like to do, none of my staff wants to move over to that part, so I would like to have a part-time person, to train for that. And I'd like to transfer from within the county, if that would be possible. It would be staying at the same, salary, with a 6-month review. And so that's what I'm asking.
Okay, when you say stay at the same salary that the employee currently has, or
Yes, it
moving
wouldn't,
into Chris's salary?
it would, as what the employee has now.
Okay,
It would just transfer over, nothing would change on that, just the department.
for part-time,
Yes,
okay.
part-time until Chris were to retire, then she would move into full-time.
Okay.
My only question is this, Tracy, is I'm not confident on the timing issue. That's the only aspect that I'm a little hesitant on. I'm very supportive, and we've discussed this, the two of us have discussed this, and I am supportive of the lateral move within the county. I think that makes sense. I think that, having a sort of a 6-month training or probationary period to make sure that things are working out, I think that also makes a great deal of sense. And so I'm really supportive of it. My question is, I don't have a date, a specific date of when, Chris, will retire. And so I'm a little hesitant to say, yes, let's do that and do that now, because if it's November of 22, that's next year. If it's January of 22, that's also next year, and both of those are, would fit the bill of next year. It's just that they would also have a pretty hefty price difference, in timing, and so, I guess I'd like to see a little more clarification on that aspect, but once we know that, then I'm still supportive of it. I just don't wanna give the final okay today, cause I don't know, but
And that's fine.
if she wants to put, but yes is my answer. I just don't know when her final day is, and I think that, training makes sense, and I know that takes time, so maybe
Yeah.
that's 6 months, or that's 9 months, or whatever it is. I'm fine with that, I just would like to know the actual sequence of events.
I don't have an exact date, but she's talked a year from June, so
Okay.
it's a year and a half yet. And I mean, that could change, I don't know, but I would like to have at least maybe 8 months worth of training. 'Cause there's a lot involved with the claims, so.
I think that that's fine, 8 or 9 months, I'm supportive of it. Let's just work it backwards from when we have a firm commitment date of retirement or something on paper saying, hey, June 1, 2022 will be my final day, and once we have that, then I'm fine backing it out 9 months prior to that and making that swap.
Yep, that's fine.
You guys good with that?
Yep.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I do have just a concern about the department that the employee would be leading. It kind of puts that department in limbo, cause I'm pretty sure they need a full-time, so just something more to consider. Okay,
And I agree with that assessment too. I think that we have a little bit of time there, especially if it really is. I'm gonna just go talk with her today or this week or whenever she gets a chance, and let's nail down that date. Then we'll back out 9 months prior to that, and then we should still have 3 or 4 months to find an adequate replacement or work out a temporary fix or whatever. So, but it's a good point.
Yep.
Okay. Won't take action on that one today, formal action. But I think there's the direction, and I hope everyone gets exactly that direction. I think it'll work out well. I think everyone should be about where they want to be on that. It's just we don't quite know yet when that'll happen, but I'm good with that. Moving on to number 6, consider revised Warren County wellness points with possible action.
good morning.
So we are trying to follow suit with the state auditors. Each year they audit our program, so we're trying to get in line with them. So we're bringing the point system. Currently for county employees that get insurance through our county insurance, if they qualify for a wellness incentive, they get $50 towards that. To get their points, we have a on the second page under the physical, emotional, and mental. The fourth one down where it says visit with a financial advisor, we added, for some reason it got taken off, so it should also read health coach, wellness coach, and a dietitian, that they could meet with. If you wanna add those, if not, you can approve it as is. But yeah, so these are our points that we have set for this year. The employees do have to get 1,000 points, as well to qualify for the 2022 incentive.
What was the number of points last year? 1,000?
650 was the points.
Thank you. Are there any questions from Mallory? Or comments?
Well, I do appreciate this. I think this is moving in a really good direction.
I'm gonna concur there. I wanna thank you for your time. I know that HR's been involved a little bit with that too, and I maybe have attended a couple things, but not a lot of them. But that was really the direction that was sort of given last year, was it was just, from my take, I care about our employees, I like our employees. I wanna provide a good benefit, and the $50 of decreased health insurance is that. I mean, that's not, super common in most private sector jobs, and it makes, what I would consider already pretty solid, benefit-rich program, even better. And so that's a wonderful thing, and I'm supportive of doing so. My concern last year and the year prior was just that, one, I now have sat in one of the audits as the chair, and I just didn't, I don't like having similar things show up on the audit year after year after year after year, and this was one of those red flags where we just get torched. And so like it was sort of the thought of the board then, and we got a little vocal with you and everyone, and just said, hey, here's the thing, and I'm a perfect example. I don't use our healthcare plan, and so I'm not qualifying for the wellness program. But my take was this: if I have a 4-year term, and every year I gain 15 pounds, and it's not muscle mass, and every year I walk up the stairs and I breathe a little bit harder, but I keep qualifying for my wellness reward, I'm a little perplexed at how that's making a county employee more well. It's just more of a financial benefit. And I'm not opposed to rewarding people financially for doing well, but if the specific goal of the program is to make our employees healthier, then I really wanted to direct a program, or have our program be more dictated towards doing these things will actually make you more well. And so we did also work a little bit with our health plan, and we sort of tried to tailor it just a little bit on where the prescription drug costs, and everything's HIPAA compliant, and so we don't know who's using what, but you can see trends on diabetes drugs or depression drugs or whatever. And so it was my goal, let's try to target a few of these prescription drug costs and see if we can tailor the wellness program to try to really tackle those so that we can reduce those costs. And then maybe in turn, I'm not so optimistic that our healthcare costs ever really decrease. But if the rate of increase is decreased, it's sort of the small win that you can receive as a county. And this year, I think it was 2%. Is that right, Megan?
I think we'll end up washing.
It'll be about a wash. I mean, the year before it was like up 7 or something. I mean, it was a lot of money. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, so it's meaningful to me. So my point of that long-winded speech was, well done. I think that moving it from 650 to 1,000 will probably not be well received in all corners of Warren County. I'm sure that it won't, but it really will by doing those things: the annual physical, the weight loss, the pedometer, those things, smoking cessation, all of those things. Those are a tailored wellness program to actually have an impact. And so, if people are upset by it, they can certainly contact me. But I think you did exactly what you were asking.
Surprisingly, the positive has outweighed the negative. I've had way more positives. A lot of people were glad to see the increase, which I'm not gonna lie, when I hit the send button on when it first went out, I was a little stressed, I have a lot more gray hair up here now. But actually a lot of people have given a lot of good feedback. They were excited to see that it was, because they feel like it's now a challenge, like you have to put forth the effort to make yourself well. And so we may lose a few people that don't wanna do it, but our focus is to try to make you better
Right,
as well, so.
great, thank you.
Well, when I started this position, I had a full head of hair. It was flowing, and I've got a few more years, but it's going in the wrong trend. So wrong trend. All right. Well, thank you, Mallory. I appreciate it, and I'm ready to entertain a motion adopting the new wellness program. Points.
Right, I'll make a motion to approve and adopt the Warren County Wellness Points List.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Tracy?
McIntyre,
Aye.
DeCook,
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you for your time. All right, number 7, consider appointments to the following boards and commissions. A, Aging Resources Advisory Council. B, Aging Resources Board of Directors. C, Warren County Board of Adjustment. D, Compensation Commission. E, Conservation Board. F, Des Moines Greenbelt Commission. G, Des Moines Area MPO Transportation Technical Committee. H, Warren County Historic Preservation Commission. I, Medical Examiner. And J, Zoning Commission.
I'll go through these each one by one, let the board know what you have for applicants. The Aging Resource Advisory Council, the gentleman that previously served on that resigned, and we have no applicants at that time. So, I'll resend that email to you with the requirements, that I received from Aging Resource on that gentleman. But we are still seeking applicants for the Aging Resource of Central Iowa Advisory Council. Your next item is the Aging Resource Board of Directors. This is a citizen that serves on this board in addition to Supervisor McIntyre. Jean Laverty has served before. She did reapply and is seeking to be reappointed to that board. So it would be a request for Jean Laverty to be appointed to the Aging Resource of Central Iowa Board of Directors. The Warren County Board of Adjustments, item C. This is an internal county board. Christine Walker previously served. She has asked for reapplied, and we received no other applicants, so the request would be for Christine Walker to be appointed. Next item is the Condemnation Compensation Commission. So this is the tricky board that has 4 categories, 7 people in each category. We did not receive individuals to reapply for each of those positions, so we do have quite a few open positions for the board to be seeking individuals to serve on that. Those that did reapply were Paul Mead, Don Van Ryswick, Jim Meadows, John Akers, Darren Becker, Carrie Bishop, Misty Solwish, Brady Jackson, Joe Gavin, Mark Putney, and Charles Bergen. They did all reapply to be on that. However, we have many open spots on that board as well that we'll need to continue to try and get applicants for. The next board is the Conservation Board for Warren County. This is the only board that received multiple applicants. Ace Hendricks currently serves on that board. He did reapply. You also received 2 new applicants, one from Brady Jackson and one from Michael Smith. The Des Moines Greenbelt, we received no applicants for that. I am not aware of that board. It's been listed on there forever. I do not have any details on that board, so I'll have to do some more research on that. The Metropolitan Planning Transportation Technical Committee, this is the committee that no supervisors serve on. This has always been the engineer, and then the alternate has been Tim Hill, his assistant. So I would ask for those to be reappointed. Warren County Historic Preservation Commission. This is an internal within the county board. You have Melody Kirk reapplied, Judy Bruce Russell reapplied, and there was a Carly Milby that was serving. She did not reapply, so you have 1 vacancy in that, but the request would be to reappoint Melody Kirk for Judy Bruce Russell. The medical examiner, This comes from the medical examiner. You appoint Lori Miller, as the medical examiner. She then appoints all of the assistants that she uses. So that list of people, you would be appointing Lori Miller and then approving all of her assistants. And then finally, there's the zoning commission. The zoning commission, both Nancy Laxton and Douglas Rooney served previously, and they have reapplied, for that position. So it would be to, approve their reapplication for that board. So the only one that has multiple choice would be your conservation board, where you do have 3 applicants and only 1 position open.
Thank you. And since we're it's a public meeting, on the handful of ones that we just don't have a candidate for, what is the best way historically this county's filled those seats? We're making a request for people who are interested in serving, and to do so, is it supervisors picking up the phone and calling people they think would be good at it?
That has been some of it, yeah. Certainly, I mean, we have the application on our website, but getting that information out there, a lot of times it's just word of mouth, the supervisors calling, hey, are you interested, do you know anyone that would be interested that would meet these qualifications?
And do we have the vacant, positions on those boards and commissions listed pretty prominently on our website?
They will be once they update this information. Right now, they're still showing the prior year's appointments.
Perhaps. I just wanna try to get a good pool of people. I mean,
No, I agree.
it's nice it's sometimes stressful to look at 2 or 3 different well-qualified candidates and then pick who's gonna be on there, or they all wanna be on there. But I'm just telling you, I prefer that greatly, even though it's awkward and maybe it hurts some feelings, than having to beg to get someone to serve in the first place. And so whatever we can do to try to get those commissions filled, some of them are very important. I mean, I think so. So for today's purpose, we really just have a determination. I mean, assuming that the board wants to accept the
reappointments as I presented.
reappointments where no one else has applied, then really it just comes down to the conservation board, where we've got Brady Jackson in Indianola. We've got who are the other 2? Ace
Hendricks and Michael Smith were the 3 applicants for the conservation board.
Okay. And my packet, I'm seeing Brady, there we go, there's Ace. And Michael Smith, okay.
The 2 members that have previously been on the conservation board,
What's that, Crystal?
there are 2 people who previously served on the conservation board.
No, Ace is the only one that.
Oh,
actually
Ace.
served. Yeah, Ace is currently serving on the conservation board, and he did ask to be he did reapply to be appointed again.
Mhm.
And then your 2 new applicants are Brady Jackson and Michael Smith.
So
They
that
have not
leaves only
served
one.
previously, they would like to be on the board, but you only have
Okay.
1 position open, and that's Ace. Ace's position is the spot that's open, so he would like to be reappointed, but you also
Okay.
have 2 other applicants that would like to be appointed as well.
I
You have to
see.
choose one of those 2.
You could, yeah, you
Right.
would have to choose one of the 3.
Oh, one of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've worked with Ace, and I think he has done stellar out there, and I'd like to continue to see him do that, so I'll make a motion to reappoint Ace Hendricks on the Conservation Board.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I will just add that I know Brady Jackson. I think he would also do a good job. I'm not familiar with Michael, but I suspect that he too would do a good job. But I've also heard positives about Ace, and so we've got a motion and a second on the table. Tracy?
McIntyre,
Aye.
Heater,
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Motion carries.
Could you also do a motion if you want to reappoint the others as I presented?
Oh, yes, and to appoint the other boards as previously listed.
A second.
Discussion? None? Tracy?
McIntyre,
Aye.
Heater,
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Motion carries. And now that we know what our vacancies are, let's, maybe the IT department and Megan can work on getting that prominently displayed, cause I think it is meaningful to have,
Oh, yeah.
good representation, and as much as that last vote was in fun. I mean, I know Brady, he's a good guy, and I'm sure he wanted to serve. And so I'd hope that he would serve in some capacity or reapply in the future too. But that awkward vote is better than begging people to serve or just having those boards and commissions being vacant. So I'd rather look at a pool of qualified candidates and choose from there. So. Okay, number 8. Consider revisions to Infectious Disease Action Plan COVID-19 with possible action. A, extension of paid leave, emergency sick paid leave, FFCRA, emergency expanded FMLA, and WC shelter in place leave, and B, revisions to illness reporting section.
In April of 2020, in response to the coronavirus pandemic, the board adopted an infectious disease action plan for COVID-19. We have made one modification to that plan. The board lifted the travel ban policy portion of that in May of 2020. However, the federal mandate for the COVID-19 and extended FMLA leave expired on December 31st of 2020. So all leave authorized under the policy expired on December 31, 2020, and no COVID-19 related leave shall be carried forward into 2021. That was a federal mandate, those leaves. 2 of those leaves were federal mandates, the emergency paid sick leave and the expansion of FMLA. In addition, the Board of Supervisors had adopted a shelter-in-place additional leave policy that was in here. So all of those have expired at this point. Many government entities and businesses have extended that because the federal government did not. With the bill that passed, they did not extend any of those leaves at a federal level as they were prior. So many have chosen to voluntarily extend those leaves going forward and various dates with that. And some have chosen not to. Now, private industries have a tax incentive to do so, but of course we do not have that tax incentive. HR director gathered input from multiple other counties, and I did confirm with Indianola today. They had it on their agenda last night. Indianola has extended through December 31st the COVID-19 sick leave, or I'm sorry, through March 31st. The COVID-19 sick leave, but not the FMLA. Other responses, various other communities, the city of Muscatine has voluntarily continued, Norwalk continued through February 28th of 2021. Marshall County has extended, Tama County has extended to January 31 of 2021. Ames is extending both until February of 28. City of Waukee is voluntarily extending the same coverage through March 31 of 2021. So there was that list that was emailed out to you all that lists out that Tessa sent in regards to the various, and there's some that are not extending at all. So the question for the board for item A is if you are wanting to extend any or all of those paid leaves. Now this special Warren County shelter in place, that one, I don't know that that's an issue in place anymore, as I don't believe there's an eminent shelter in place, whereas in April, we weren't sure what was going to happen at that time. So certainly that one, let that expire. However, the extension of the COVID-19 sick leave, which is the 80 hours, and this would not be a renewal. This would be anyone who hasn't already used their 80 hours of sick leave would still have that opportunity into whatever your extension time was. It would not be a renewal of the benefit, as if you used it in 20, then you also now get it again in 21. It would just be an extension of those who have not used it. And then with the emergency paid sick leave, that was the extension of your ability to claim FMLA at 2/3 pay if due to COVID-19 you need to stay home to care for a child that has lost their daycare, which was just a very different scenario than what FMLA generally runs. And that was at 2/3 pay, is what the federal mandate was for the extended FMLA. So those two items, the board has a lot of options. You can see that the different communities did different extension dates. Some of them did both, some of them just did the COVID-19 80 hours if you hadn't already used it, that you still had that.
Can the 80 hours be used for, you have a first grader or a second grader, they're in contact, they're quarantined for a week or two, can the 80 hours be used for that as well?
Yes, if you extended it as was dictated through the federal legislation, there were 6 reasons that you could use it. It would be the same 6 reasons that you could use the COVID-19 80 hours of the sick leave, and that includes caring for a son or daughter. If the school or place of care of the son or daughter has closed, or a child care provider or son or daughter is unavailable due to COVID-19 precautions, which would include if they send everyone home for quarantine. Tessa did reach out to department heads and ask their opinions. Certainly the public health director, from her perspective, and the point of the leave in the first place was to keep sick people out of the workplaces so it wasn't spreading. So certainly if there's not a paid leave to quarantine, if there's exposures, you have the potential of people coming to work now. If they don't have their own sick leave, if they don't have their own, if we're still requiring the illness portion, the illness reporting portion is kind of item B of the policy. That's going to be the remaining piece depending on what the board does with the leave. So we have an illness reporting policy that says you don't enter this building if you have symptoms of COVID-19. So we're requiring that you follow CDC guidelines, public health guidelines on quarantining if you've had these things. And so then the question is, if you're going to require a quarantine, do you then still continue to offer the COVID-19 pay?
And the 80 hours is full pay, right?
Yes, yeah, it was just like an additional sick leave on top of the existing sick leave that the county offers. It was in addition to.
What is the existing sick leave that the county offers?
The county offers, it's 3.08 hours per pay period, but there's a carryover is pretty much unlimited, because you're allowed to carry over over 2,000 hours of sick leave if you accumulate it. Yeah, once you, but you have to accumulate it first. But there is 2 weeks of sick leave.
Thank you, Mayor.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, you guys got the information, I think, for just the perspective of what everyone else is doing, you know, the extension is there, it's just a matter of what date you guys think, you know, would best suit us. Kinda goes back to, in talking about the rollover and whatnot, I did reach back out to counties asking what they were doing with their pay, and Megan's right, they're not renewing the bucket, they're just letting people roll over what they have. So if people already used all of theirs or whatever in 2020, they don't have a bucket going forward 2021.
think my biggest concern with employees overall in the county has been school closings. I feel that the school closings have, I think they've worked those out, but you still may have a younger child go home that you need to be there for. With that, I'd like to, it seems like March is the time where people are gonna review it again. I'd like to say June 1st, but that may not be the best thing, so those are my thoughts.
Guys are here.
Well, I'm on the fence on this, you know, being, from a business background, it seems like a generous benefit. And from a financial perspective, you know, what does the county, what are the requirements of a good employer? This seems to exceed my experience. You know, I would, you know, so I'm definitely on the fence. And just from my background and my experience, I'd probably be interested in doing like a portion of this through a limited amount of time.
Okay.
Because obviously limiting the exposure is the most critical key to this. We just, we don't want to encourage a situation where people feel like they have to come to work. So I think it's a pandemic, and the key is to err on the side of safety and health. So, you know, from a business perspective, I would lean to just to eliminate this. From a health and safety standpoint, I think we have to do something just to, for the care of the county and the people who work here. So, I mean, I'd like to see just some modification to how it sits.
What are you looking at when you say modifications?
I'm saying like, do the emergency paid sick leave portion for the people that haven't used this, that leaves that open, the 80 hours of pay and the 2 weeks to make adjustments, to stay out, to stay home if you're sick, seems to make sense.
Okay.
You know, the shelter in place, I don't think, as we mentioned, is an issue at all. I think we could eliminate that provision. And then, you know, the emergency expanded portion where they get 2/3 of their pay, I mean, for 10 weeks. Just seems to be, you know, a big benefit that I don't know how much that limits exposure and keeps people safe. So, you know, I don't know if you're ready, if you wanna have more comment, Aaron. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you're thinking.
Sure. Yeah, I think the shelter in place order, you know, from the governor, I think that at this point is probably a non-issue. I mean, again, I'll take the position that if things drastically change and we're wrong, it's not like we're going to sit on our hands and not reinstitute something or bring something back if things spike and we're at 50% positivity testing or you know, things go horribly wrong. That said, I was very encouraged. I was saddened last year to see COVID-19 be politicized early on, and I don't care what party anyone's on, it certainly was. I don't think that's arguable. I was really pleased to see some private companies, you know, get a vaccine out as fast as they did, with Johnson & Johnson coming. I think AstraZeneca just got approved in the UK. Moderna has one that's being given right now, and Pfizer has one. I think that's really commendable for how fast that turned around. So my thoughts are a little bit tempered with the fact that you know, there are some people in the county, there's some county employees that have already received a vaccine that I'm aware of. And as that continues to roll out, I would think that should be helpful. And now I'm turning 40 in March, and so I don't think I'll have an opportunity to take a vaccine for a long time. And that's fine. But, you know, I data point, at least in my mind, to say, I'm not real inclined to say, let's just renew all three of these, for a year or something. That just doesn't make sense, and it is, too expensive. I think that we should have some flexibility to revisit this as needed. All of that being said, I think the 80 hours of the FFCRA for those that have not used it, I think that makes sense to continue that through a date, maybe through the end of March. I'm fine with March 31. That seems like that sort of dovetails with what Norwalk and Indiana and some other places are doing. The expanded FMLA. Well, that's the other thing that I think the public probably doesn't grasp. Megan certainly does, and that was the accumulation of sick time, the 3 hours per pay period. If you're a county employee who's been here for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, I can assure you that there are some very substantial buckets of sick time. There just are. And so I think that some of that's not maybe as much of an issue as it might seem on the face of it for the majority of our employees. That doesn't mean that catches everyone, and I would tell you that if there are extenuating circumstances that need to be addressed on a specific nature, or if someone's able to do some work from home and they don't have sick time for whatever reason, but they're still able to competently do their job from home, I'd be more than happy to have that discussion with people, because it's not my objective to be punitive to our employees at all. But I think Darren's also correct that, I read the comments. Is there anyone in the United States that's maybe, I won't say abused, but maybe used some benefits in the last 12 months that weren't exactly needed? Of course there was. So I'd like to try to curtail that as much as possible, but to still be reasonable. So I think that the middle ground, if you will, on this might just be the 80 hours for those who haven't used it, extend that through March 31st, and then revisit if or as needed, would sort of be my take. But I'd like to hear just a little more on that FMLA, the expanded FMLA, because our employees still have FMLA. Oh, it's not due to
So
COVID.
this expanded was for daycare only.
Okay.
So this was for daycare only. Like Crystal said, when the school was gonna close, when daycares were closing, I mean, if you had small children,
Okay.
what are you gonna do? I mean, and back in April, that was, what are we gonna do? Because if your daycare, when the schools all closed, gonna send everybody home. Certainly I was lucky enough that my oldest was old enough to stay home with the kiddos. But that was a real fear, and that's where this stemmed from, was giving working parents the ability to cover and still be able to have income to care for said children in the first place, right? So that's where it stemmed from. I think we're past the point where schools are closing. I don't foresee it. The wind could change, but it doesn't seem to be at this point that we're there anymore. So that was kind of the difference on where we were in April versus where we are now on that extended FMLA piece of it. But it was at 2/3 pay, which normal FMLA is just you can have unpaid leave. You just don't lose your job. Right, whereas this was that we would continue to pay 2/3 of somebody's pay if they had to do this because of the pandemic. So that was also a difference with that FMLA piece.
Being new to this, I'm gonna just throw it out, but certainly there are extenuating circumstances with people and employees, and I don't think it wouldn't be my position to say, this is the hard and fast, no matter what, we're gonna follow this policy. Hopefully, the leaders in our county, the supervisors, the directors, the people report to, those people feel comfortable to come to you and put a case out. And I, as a board member, would have every interest in looking at, not necessarily a highly administrative case-by-case basis, but when something filters up to the top and you need something to help a valued employee or a person in need, or there's something that we can't forecast in our policy, I'd hope we'd be the kind of county that could take a look at those things and you'd feel comfortable bringing them to the board members, and we, from my standpoint, we want to figure out a way to make better for people.
And certainly during the whole, the board has given a great deal of discretion to elected officials and department heads on how they're able to continue serve and their work from home with their employees and to work that out. The board has not been necessarily hands-on in each department as far as that. They've left it up to the department heads and the elected officials to work within their own department to determine the best way to meet the needs as well as being able to reach those safety goals.
Got it. Quarterly, I'm pretty good with the 80 hours through March 31st, and then B, I don't know if they've addressed provisions to illness reporting section.
Of course, you know, this is, daily. It seems that it changes daily on what your requirements are for it. If you look at your packet, I included, Jodine DeVault, the public health director, was gracious enough to look at the policy and update, and you'll see the updates in red on new, requirements. Cause our illness reporting that was in our policy was still as of April, when information was relatively new. So those updates include, including as a symptom, the loss of sense of taste or smell, including that if you have been diagnosed with COVID-19 or tested positive in the past 14 days, so making that distinction, not if you've ever been, you know, just kind of those things that we didn't know to put in there at the time. Have had close contact with someone who has been diagnosed with COVID-19 or tested positive for COVID-19 during the past 14 to 24 days. Please contact public health for more specific case guidance. It's fluid, you know, that guidance is changing, so that gives us the ability to, you know, whatever the current guidelines are is what public health is gonna advise employees to do. This includes living in the same household, spending 15 minutes, whereas our policy had 3 minutes, which certainly that has changed a long time ago, to be 15 minutes. And then that clarification that it's within the past 14 days. So the items in red are the changes I would request for the illness reporting to update those to current standards.
And did our travel, I just have a travel,
We lifted that in May. The board lifted that in May.
so no additional changes from that.
So it would be no additional changes. So if the board extends it, they would as you've suggested, it would be extending, the COVID-19, pay. The illness reporting would stay, but both the expanded FMLA and the shelter-in-place leave would expire.
And then adopt the new changes to our illness reporting section.
Correct.
I don't see anything in here for those that have had COVID and then their exposure, cause I know for up to 90 days, if you're exposed after you've had COVID, you don't have to quarantine. Is that still?
Well, that's kind of where they have in their contact public health for specific case guidance.
Okay.
That's kind of the blanket statement where whatever the current guidelines are, public health is gonna be able to advise to follow those
Okay.
current guidelines.
Alright.
Because certainly over the past few months, we've learned that that's just has changed daily sometimes, and it's like, I don't know
Okay.
at this point.
My guess is we're gonna need to revisit the illness reporting, especially considering, I mean, that's one example, but especially considering vaccinations as well. I mean, that's gonna, if someone's vaccinated and then gets exposed to COVID, I mean.
There's no expiration on the illness reporting at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no expiration of when that quarantine, but neither is federal or local guidance taken that away at this point. So that one doesn't have an expiration, it's just an ask to update it to kind of current and give it a little more flexibility with current guidelines. So that it's not a come back to the board every time the guidance changes, cause you guys would see this like every
meeting.
right? Every meeting we talk
Okay.
about it. So that was the request on the illness reporting piece.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Or more discussion? I'm good with whatever.
Okay, well, let me just see if we have this right. Okay, you want to extend the paid leave for those who have not taken it yet, up to 80 hours. Okay, the emergency expanded FMLA on a case-by-case basis. Is that correct?
What if they haven't used all 80, but like used 40, so then they could roll over their 40?
I think it was
Okay.
Not just 80, but if you've used some but have any left over, that could be rolled over.
So that you can roll over into this year?
Any unused COVID-19 paid leave, any unused COVID-19 paid leave.
With an
31st as of right, okay.
Now, I think the extended FMLA, I don't know that you can kind of do a case-by-case
Well,
basis.
I don't think that we.
It's either you're extending it or you're not extending it, and
Oh,
leave
I
it
see.
as, the department head can work with, as we have, department head can work with their employee for work from home solutions or, somehow working on their, schedule, something like that.
Okay.
Or extend it, I mean, either or, but I don't, you
I
can't.
Yeah,
desire
Don,
to extend.
Don is looking at me with a federal regulation that we're gonna do case by case basis. She's not shaking her head, but I'm seeing it in her eyes. That it's we move it forward or we
Or we
drop
don't,
it.
okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know,
Yeah.
okay.
I think that one's either an extend or don't extend, but I don't
Okay.
think we've gotta have some type of level of policy in place.
I don't wanna be in federal court.
Leave it to me. All right, well, I would say no to extending the FMLA. That is my,
The expanded FMLA. Sure.
yeah, oh, sorry,
Yep.
the emergency expanded. Okay, and then the Warren County shelter in place, I don't believe that is applicable to us anymore.
And adopt the illness reporting changes as presented.
Yep. Okay, so I'll make a motion. Let me get it right. The extension of paid leave, emergency paid sick leave, FFCRA, and to roll over any unused leave, until March 31st of 2021. We are not extending the emergency expanded FMLA, and we no longer need the Warren County shelter in place leave, and accept the revisions to the illness reporting section of our Warren County policies. That's my motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this matter?
Did we leave anything out on that?
Some.
Megan? Dustin? Okay,
I think you got it.
okay.
Motion and a second. Tracy?
McIntyre,
Aye.
Heater,
Aye.
DeCook,
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Number 9, consider county building reopening plan with possible action.
Well, I've been approached, by 2 people who wanted to use the building again, and so I asked them to be put on the agenda. So just, what are some of the thoughts of being able to use the building by the public again? Either by a rental or just by use?
Yeah, for your benefit, Supervisor Peters, the boardroom here is frequently used by nonprofits, other entities that, they'll request to use the facilities as a meeting room. That was suspended, back in March, and so we haven't allowed any outside use of the building, since then for group gatherings like that. So that would be where the request is coming from, to allow those outside entities to use our facilities for group meetings.
And normally we would rent out the auditorium, but since the courts have used that now, I don't know if that is something we can, is that easily taken down, or I wouldn't think so, because they have audio and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the auditorium would be off limits at this point, because it's in use.
All right.
Are these large groups of people that come in here, what are the basic
What-
numbers, are it 5 or 10 people, or 30 or 40 people?
The
That
meetings
come
in the past that I've attended, have been upwards of 60 people.
Okay.
And of course, we'd have to say, spacing and,
Right, so the current governor's proclamation, in regards to social, community, business, or leisure gatherings or events, including weddings, funerals, etc. They may be held, but only if the gathering complies with all other relevant provisions of the proclamation and the following requirements: social distancing. The gathering organizer and all participants in the gathering must ensure at least 6 feet of physical distance between each group or individual attending alone. Other social distancing, hygiene, and public health measures. The gathering organizer shall also implement reasonable measures under the circumstances of each gathering to ensure social distancing. of gathering participants, increase hygiene practices and other public health measures to reduce the risk of transmission of COVID-19, consistent with guidance issued by the Iowa Department of Public Health. And for any food service, the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals. Certain business gatherings that are excluded. This section does not apply to restrict gatherings that occur during the ordinary course of business or government between employees or members of the public, including but not limited to gatherings in an office or manufacturing workplace, normal retail operations, or other established explicit addressed in this proclamation. So there is a requirement on the organizing entity. However, I don't know, this would be a good question for Ms. Bowman, whether we would need to have some type of liability form that states that they say they're going to adhere to all proclamation requirements for social gatherings. Because generally these are at night. I mean, they're not when anybody's here to be observing or making sure that any requirements are followed within the facilities. We do continue to have restricted access to the building through our east entrance with the door monitor, is what we have with the door monitor, taking temperatures, offering a mask with the germ gel. So currently that's the policy for the county during office hours.
And I don't know if IT's ability to open one door for access, is that possible?
Yeah,
or not?
I mean, I
don't
think they
know.
have the ability. The question would be, are you wanting, if you do this, do you want there to be a monitor that works that shift to take temperatures and to
No.
make sure that no sick people enter the building?
We would have to change the application for the building and say that they would have to monitor it themselves. I don't think we wanna
Right.
have someone there, in the evenings. Yeah, I think it would be the responsibility of those using the building.
Okay, so we have a new board, and we'll certainly figure out where Mr. Heater is because we don't discuss these beforehand. But I'll say my part, and then I'm interested in my colleagues. I think I know where Crystal is on that. But here's my take. We just extended the 80 hours through March 31st. I think in a recent, no, that was through March 1. We extended the door monitoring situation during the day through March 1 of 2021. And I just think that it sort of runs afoul a little bit of trying to be safe during the day with who comes in a little bit and with the temp check and at least encouraging a mask. We don't mandate it, but we encourage it. And so that coupled with the governor's proclamation, which I don't remember when she signed that last one. I think it was a couple weeks back in December.
Yeah, December.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just think it's gonna be awfully difficult to really put our arms around that unless she changes that proclamation. And I think that she will at time. I don't know when it'll be. That's why I'm hopeful that the vaccine sort of, those who want to take it or those who are in categories that COVID's a little more serious for probably will take it. I think that we're really butting up against and creating some more problems. I know it's a hassle for those groups that want to meet here, and I hear from them too. But I'm not real inclined. I'm a no vote on it at least until March 1st and maybe March 31st. But I am eager to get the building reopened. I just think that we need a little more time. So I feel a little bad that I'm punting or kicking that can down the road. But I think that it sort of runs afoul with our door monitoring persons, and it sort of makes it really difficult to actually make sure a group of 40 or 50 people are 6 feet apart or just doing what the law says, and I don't want to run afoul of that. And so I'm not good with opening the building for additional use in the evenings at least until March 1. And honestly, if we just picked that 80 hours to go to March 31st, I would tell you I'd like to come back to this on March 15 or March 20 us, but that's where I'm at. But I welcome your thoughts and yours too, Crystal. Not only one.
I believe that we should not allow a big group of people, you know, in a small space. And we should try to, just abide by the CDC guidelines and try to limit the exposure. I don't think we're out of the woods yet on COVID. I think it's, still, people can get it. It's, you know, the positivity rate is up there. And I'm all for the community sharing, you know, being a part of our building. They are us, they are our buildings, but I think the timing, I'd be concerned about the timing of just jumping back in, at this point.
Well, I don't agree, but that's okay. Alright.
Seeing that there's no motion, thank you, Crystal.
You're welcome.
That puts a vote on record. I'm sure 2 of our cell phones are going to ring today. But like I said, let's do this, Megan. Let's look at that again on March 15, 16, mid-March. And I wanna be with you on this. I really do. I think that, you know, in the United States that I love, you get some freedom to choose what you wanna do. If you wanna go to a meeting, and absorb some risk in doing so, okay, but I get that personally, but I also get as a supervisor here that we've got lots of employees in our building that we're setting the tone with, a door monitor, and we're setting the tone with increasing or expanding some COVID-related benefits through March 31st. It just runs a little contradictory to me, but I'm eager to hit that date and to have some better news to share and to get things back open on a large scale. I'd like to have the whole building opened up without a door monitor and all the doors open and meetings resuming, and maybe that can happen in the summer, or maybe that can happen in the spring. I just don't know what the numbers will look like, but that's my hope. So, all right, moving to number 10, supervisors report. I will tell the public this. Sometimes, most of the time, I like to start with Supervisor McIntyre, because she usually has a very nice list, and then some of those things I've also attended, and then I scribble them on my list and say them as well. So I'm gonna continue that trend this year and let Kristen go first.
Okay, thanks. Alright, well, I attended the Impact Board meeting, virtual. I've been working on the reorganizing of the EMA and the dispatch, various meetings with different county leaders. I attended the Warren County COVID update, that is each Tuesday. Not today though. Emergency communications budget workshop. Didn't get everything resolved, but we're working on it. We did not have a dispatch technology users group last month due to illnesses, and I did attend the Essex Region 1 Regional Interoperability Committee. That's Rick. Basically, they discuss within our region. I think there's about I don't know how many counties are a part of that. I want to say 10, but they talk about our new 911 communication system that is going in Warren County. This region, some of the counties have already have the system, and they're talking about issues that have arisen and current policies and how they need to be changed, implementing policies, and then those counties that don't have the systems, how it affects them also, because we all need to be able to communicate with each other at one point or another, and so there should be policies addressing how we handle those situations. So that's what that meeting is about. 911 executive board meeting was before, or it was after our regular 911 Management Executive Board, and we discussed, budget for the emergency management side. And that's my report.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Heater? I've been here all 3 days. I've been to 2 meetings here in this boardroom, and I, haven't offered much to the county at this point. So, I have, hopefully next, meeting I'll have something of value to bring. That's all I got.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We had a special and organizational meeting yesterday. I'll highlight, I heard a meeting that I made reference to yesterday. There was a grant that we received at HERDA for about $1 million. And honestly, I think that the leadership of that, I won't say the board, but I think the staff and our director there, they really helped HERDA navigate some very choppy waters of 2020, and we weren't really on great financial footings to start, and it's really going in the right direction, which I think is really important for those people who need rides, some of which are in Warren County. So I'm very pleased about that. I've met with some of the department heads, specifically our new sheriff. I wanted to welcome Joe Carrico to Warren County and congratulate him on a win there. Attended an audit with our budget director in the state of Iowa, and that's one of the things that we're going to work on, because those audits, I think Doug used to do them. This was my first one. Sometimes in our county we've got a few things that keep reoccurring on our audit, and I don't mind. I personally don't mind when if there's a mistake or there's an error, and I'm not saying we have mistakes and errors, so don't quote me on that one, but people are human nature is that there's sometimes things don't go perfectly, and I get that. And I accept that. I want to work to fix that, but I accept that things can happen. But what I don't refuse to accept is patterns where the same issue hits year after year after year and doesn't get addressed. That, in my mind, as a supervisor, is unacceptable. And so, I'm not saying we can tackle every single thing on there, and some of it is in the gray area where we're not technically doing something wrong, it's just the state has some potential for concern, and maybe there's a better or best practice that we could implement to help move us in a better direction. But we're gonna tackle a bunch of those. And I know that the new sheriff specifically has a couple on his list, and he's probably, he's got a lot going on right now, and so I'm not exactly interested in loading on 3 or 4 more things to tackle day one, but I can assure you that we will work with that office and any other offices that had a couple things that maybe just could be a little bit better or more efficient, to remove those from future audits, but that is a goal, and we're gonna do it. I took a long county road trip the day the snow flew, and I thought it was gonna come a little later, but the news lied to me. And it came earlier in the morning than I had hoped, and I was down by New Virginia and Medora, and I did want to check out some roads. I know that historically there's been some secondary road issues in our county, and so I wanted to sort of see what we were looking at least in late December. We did have some snow, and they were passable, but I wanted to sort of get my eyes on that because I'm just not down there that often. I wanted to welcome warmly Mr. Heater, congratulate him on his win as well, and tell you I look forward to working with you. Wish and thank Supervisor Scholl for years of service. Doug will be the first to tell you that we didn't agree on everything, but it still was a cordial relationship, and he has some qualities that I just sincerely appreciate, and I think we're going to miss some of those qualities, especially at budget time, because the guy had a knack for numbers. I also wanted to take a moment, starting the new year off, giving some real kudos to Supervisor McIntyre and our staff in 911 and emergency management on the communication towers. and Don Bowman, and everyone who had a hand in that. I don't think that the county, or at least much of the county, sort of understood where our system was at 2 years ago. And how, you know, living on luck seems to work out more often than not, but when it doesn't, and it matters. And so a lot of work went into that, and I don't see much in the papers on it. I'm fine with that, I don't care. It's probably fine, I just want a system that works well, so that when 911 gets called and an ambulance gets deployed, or a fire truck heads out somewhere, or our deputies or the police officers in Carlisle need to use their radio, I just need stuff to work. I mean, you don't think about things not working, but if they don't work, it can be a real problem. And so I'm really impressed with the work that Crystal did and our staff did, and getting that going. I look forward to having that up and running this year. Lastly, I'll end with some goals and priorities. It's a new year, we have a new board. I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues and our staff here. Some of my priorities, I'll just lay them out for everyone. We've got a lot of work coming up before us with the budget. Every year it's challenging, and the citizens here deserve good government. I think that that's really important. I want to help bring that, and I'm sure the colleagues do as well. Budgets is a tough thing because everything costs money. Everything costs money. And so you've got people that want nice things, but they cost money. And then you've got other people that don't want to pay because they don't want to spend money, but they want nice things. And so you're just constantly at a grind on trying to find a balancing point where taxes don't become prohibitive, but services, I mean, you could have no taxes and no services, but that doesn't work either. So you gotta find a balance. And I want to encourage the citizens of Warren County to get involved at these upcoming budget sessions. This is your chance, truly, I'm not joking, this is your chance to have meaningful impact in whatever priorities that you care about. It does very little good to come to a meeting after the budget is set and to scream at supervisors because something that you care about that probably costs a lot of money isn't there. It just, we can't recreate the money, but as we allocate funds, that occurs during the budget workshop sessions. And so they're not glamorous, it's where the sausage is made. But that is where, if you have concerns that you want to bring, that is your time to bring those concerns. Well, you can bring them whenever you want, there's public comment. I'm just saying it's not as impactful in the 11th hour after the budget is set. So come, if they're recorded, watch them. We'll have time for public comment. I welcome that because that's the time for you to be involved as a citizen, to let us know what you want and how you want things to operate. Second big goal and priority is the courthouse jail. I think there was an article in the Record Herald recently, sort of giving an update and some progress updates. But it's a priority for a lot of reasons, but in large part because it's a substantial financial cost. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and we just don't need to get it wrong. And so that'll be one of my top priorities, is to help make sure that stays on time and stays within a budget number that will frankly be less than what people voted for. And that's a big goal. And I think we're gonna hit both of those, but I'm very cognizant of those numbers. Number 3, I only have 4. Number 3, as the county has moved through some of our bigger issues, and I would contend that the jail and justice center was a huge issue. I mean, it's contentious, it's a lot of money, you've gotta go to the public and get approval for it, but it's going on the right track. So I'm not saying it's done, I'm just saying it's something that's being addressed. as 911 towers, which I just don't think very many people really were aware of, where we were at on that. As that finishes up this year, it's a big deal. At the third thing is that when I ran, that I heard a lot. Now my district's mostly Norwalk and Cumming and a little bit of the Plaza, and then I have some rural areas too. But I still heard just a lot of discussion, and usually discussion's a nice way to put it, about our secondary roads. And so I'll admit I was very naive. And Megan's seen it. You're in a candidate forum or whatever, and you're like, "What? Yeah, would you like to pave every road in Warren County?" Sure, I would. Of course, but we don't have like $2 billion to do so, and so you start learning quickly. But what I learned is that there was some additional funds that could have went to the secondary roads department, and it wasn't, and I think that that's helped, because and I think the weather's helped, but I think that we've heard a lot less concerns about it. But I know that they're still there, and I know that some of those roads still need work, and so I want to try to build some more efficiencies with our engineer. I want to make sure that that's one of my priorities, is to make sure that our engineer has what he needs and his office needs to make the best possible roads that we can have here, because it matters to the people of this county whether or not they run on a lot. It just matters. And to that end, one of the things that I think sort of gets kicked down the can down the road is I don't know if the new supervisor has been to our current engineer's shop site. It's always a matter of money, and I understand that, but I think that we need to start taking an earnest look at how can we do at least phase 1 of 2 or 3 phases of the shop site at the Nevada site to get that moving in the right direction. And I don't know what that'll look like, but I think that we have to start being intentional with that. Otherwise, it's just going to cost more money down the road. And so I intend on, the point of that is I intend on setting a special meeting to sort of bring Mr. Heater up to speed a little bit, and then start working with our engineer and the supervisors to figure out what if anything can we do, what sort of phase can we maybe implement. But I think it'd be a shame if 2 years passes again and we just are in the exact same point. So, lastly, with the roads, we sort of addressed it a little bit last year, but a cleaner Warren County, that sort of dovetails with budget, but it's going to be my intention to allocate some amount of funding, not a lot, but a little, towards some additional cameras, to work with the sheriff's office and maybe some residents in a collaboration to see if we can help clean up the county and really work hard on catching a few people who are dumping stuff in our ditches and on our roadways. But a cleaner Warren County matters to me. And then lastly, somewhat ambitious as well, but I'd like to spend some real time in the next 2 years on economic development. Listening to Administrator Nelson, sort of highlight what's been done and what's coming in Norwalk. Not only is that good for Norwalk, and it is, but it generates a great deal of tax base for the entirety of the county. I listened very intently when Supervisor Scholl was sitting here talking about the impact of that Microsoft deal on our Justice Center, and how one of his regrets was the casino, and I'm not going to get into that, but he was talking about it, and it was 10 cents on the debt levy. I mean, Microsoft's paying for about 1/9 of our courthouse, the financing of our courthouse and jail. That is phenomenal. Are those big tech companies continuing to grow? I contend they are. The NASDAQ was up 60% or something this year, and those big companies continue to grow. If this county can try to secure another an Apple or Microsoft data center, or Facebook data center, Bondurant keeps getting them. Those are earth-shattering amounts of money that that, really could go a long way here. So I'm not gonna throw down the gauntlet and say, all right, 2 years we'll have this. I'm not gonna knit it. But I think we have to work really hard on making sure we're attractive, making sure that we're the right kind of county, because we have great proximity to Des Moines. We've got a lot of things going for us, and it would be very, very helpful and on that large scale, but also on the small scale, to make sure that we're doing right by small businesses here, and that we're an attractive place that helps, because those numbers you will see matter a lot at budget time, because that commercial valuation is taxed higher than residential. There's not a rollback, there's not an ag exemption where, a big farm is getting $400 of taxes and we get, $14.02 from it, which is fine. But my point is, they're very nice, and I'd like to have some more business relocate to Warren County, because I think it'll help out a lot. So those are sort of some of my goals and priorities for 2021. I do look forward to working with you all, and that's all I have. Is there any public input?
I have none online.
I do have something to add.
Sure.
We talked about the work on 911. Doug McCassin was really the hero of that, as well as Don working with him. Our 911 communication system would not be happening today. So, and then we talked about efficiencies in our secondary roads. That would be a huge savings to the taxpayers if we can create those efficiencies in there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Is there anyone in the room who would like to add a comment or input?
I would like to say that had it not been for Doug managing that project, Doug McCaslin, towers wouldn't have gotten built as rapidly and as well coordinated.
Awesome, thank
The county
you.
needs to know that.
Absolutely. Well done, Doug. Well done. All right, number 12, next regular meeting date, January 19, 2021. The board and our organizational meeting determined yet again that we would flip meeting times, so we'd have a morning meeting. This is the first Tuesday in the morning, and then we'd have an evening meeting the third Tuesday at 6 p.m. And I think it's important, the reason that didn't happen, honestly, the reason that didn't happen, a couplefold, but the main reason that didn't happen is it means that our staff, Megan, county attorney, IT, are coming in after hours to make that meeting happen for you. And so it gives you the ability, if you're working, a standard 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 job or something, to still be able to come in person and voice your concerns. I think that's important. But it's, I know that COVID sort of threw a wrench in people coming, and I get that. But as things get worked through, it would be my intention and hope that we'd have more people attend those meetings, because we're doing it for the benefit of you. Pure and simple. It's easier in my life if I've got a 9:30 meeting, as opposed to being away from family from 6 till 8 or whatever, and then driving home. So hopefully as things open up, we'll get some good attendance at both meetings, but especially the evening meeting, if that works for you. So with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Pico,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
McIntyre.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It's like the first time you got to do that, isn't it, Crystal? How
I
did you
know.
feel?
I didn't have to beat anybody.